Have you ever worked so hard for something, only to ruin it the moment it finally starts to go right? You get the dream job and miss deadlines. You fall in love and start picking fights. You begin a new habit, then sabotage it within days. Why? What if I told you there's a hidden part of your mind that wants things to fall apart? Not because it hates you, but because it's protecting you from something even scarier than failure: change. This isn't laziness, it's not weakness. It's a built-in psychological defense system that lives in the shadows of your unconscious, and it's been running the show without your permission. In this episode, we're diving into the darkest corners of the human psyche to expose the part of you that sabotages your success, and the twisted reason it secretly loves to. Let's begin. To understand why we sabotage ourselves, we first have to meet the part of us that does it, the shadow self. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist, described the shadow as the hidden part of our psyche, everything we reject, suppress, or deny about ourselves. It's not just our darkness, but also our unexplored potential. It's made of parts of you that at some point were deemed unacceptable, too angry, too needy, too wild, too different. So what happens? You hide them, you adapt, you become who you're supposed to be. But those rejected parts don't vanish. They go underground, into the unconscious, where they start influencing your thoughts, choices, and reactions without you even realizing it. This is where sabotage begins. Imagine the shadow as a younger version of you, locked in the basement, still trying to be heard. It doesn't speak in words, it speaks in impulses, fears, and patterns. Ever lash out when you're about to get close to someone? Procrastinate right before something big? Walk away from something just as it's about to succeed? That's the shadow whispering, "This isn't safe. Stay small, stay familiar." It's not evil, it's protective, but it's outdated protection based on old wounds. The tragedy is this: the shadow isn't trying to ruin your life, it's trying to protect you from pain. It just doesn't know you've grown. Until you bring it into the light, it will continue to run the show from behind the curtain. Recognizing your shadow is the first step toward reclaiming control over your life, because what remains unconscious will always control you, and you'll call it fate. The shadow self thrives in secrecy, because that's how it survives. From a young age, we're taught which parts of ourselves are acceptable and which are not. Maybe you were punished for expressing anger. Maybe you learned that needing love made you weak, so you buried those parts to be safe, to belong, to be good. But buried emotions don't disappear. They fester, and the longer they stay hidden, the more power they gain. Psychologically, this is where Freud's concept of defense mechanisms comes in. Tools your mind uses to keep painful truths out of awareness. Repression, denial, projection. These all help maintain the illusion that everything's fine. But here's the paradox: by avoiding the shadow, you feed it. The shadow becomes a trickster, manipulating your choices, sabotaging your goals, not out of malice, but because it's been exiled and unheard. It thrives in the dark because it was born in the dark. It survives through secrecy, shame, and silence. And as long as it remains unacknowledged, it will shape your behavior from beneath the surface, without your consent. Bringing it into the light isn't comfortable, but it's the only way to stop it from silently steering your life. It sounds irrational. Why would anyone choose pain? But here's the twist: the brain doesn't crave what's good for you, it craves what's familiar. If you grew up in chaos, you might find peace uncomfortable. If you were constantly criticized, validation might feel suspicious. If love was conditional, unconditional care might seem unsafe. This is what trauma experts refer to as trauma repetition, the unconscious drive to recreate early emotional environments, even if they were painful. Why? Because your nervous system equates familiar with safe. It's predictable. You know how to survive it. So you might find yourself stuck in patterns that hurt you, relationships that mirror old wounds, self-sabotage that feels oddly comforting, chaos that feels like home. Your mind says, "I want change," but your body whispers, "This feels too new, let's go back." So the cycle repeats. This is where the shadow thrives, in the gap between what you say you want and what your nervous system has learned to expect. That gap creates tension, anxiety, and often sabotage. The inner saboteur isn't trying to hurt you, it's trying to return you to a pain it understands, because unfamiliar peace feels like a threat. Until you become conscious of these patterns, you'll keep choosing what's familiar over what's healthy. Not because you're broken, but because your pain became your blueprint. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes sabotage doesn't just feel familiar, it actually feels good. Your brain is wired to seek rewards, especially through dopamine, the neurotransmitter that reinforces habits and behaviors. But it doesn't discriminate between what's healthy and what's harmful. It simply repeats what produces a predictable emotional outcome. So when you procrastinate right before a big deadline, argue just as a relationship deepens, or binge on distractions when you're close to a goal, you might feel momentarily relieved. That relief, dopamine. Over time, the brain starts associating sabotage with safety and even pleasure. It becomes a shortcut to emotional release. Chaos replaces boredom, drama replaces intimacy, failure replaces the anxiety of success. You've now got a neurological loop. Trigger, sabotage, relief, repeat. This is why just trying harder doesn't work. You're fighting a reward system that's been trained over years to see self-sabotage as a win. To break the cycle, you have to do more than resist impulses. You have to retrain the reward. You have to give your nervous system a new story. That peace can feel safe. That success can feel earned. That stillness can feel satisfying. We all say we want success, more love, more freedom, more impact. But when it starts to happen, something strange kicks in. Panic, resistance, self-doubt. Why? Because to parts of your unconscious mind, success is unfamiliar and therefore unsafe. Psychologist Gay Hendricks calls this the upper limit problem, an invisible ceiling on how much success, love, or happiness you allow yourself to experience before subconsciously pulling the plug. It's not logical, it's emotional. Success can threaten everything you've used to define yourself, your struggle, your identity, your relationships. You fear standing out. You fear being envied. You fear that success will isolate you or expose you as a fraud. This is the hidden engine behind imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and sudden collapse right after things go well. The unconscious mind says, if I grow, I might lose my people. If I shine, they might see the real me and leave. If I win, I'll have more to lose. So you self-sabotage, not because you hate success, but because a younger version of you is still terrified of what success might cost. Until that fear is named and faced, success won't feel safe, and you'll keep pushing it away. Self-sabotage looks like destruction on the outside, but on the inside, it's often an act of protection. This is one of the hardest truths to accept. The part of you that keeps ruining things isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to keep you safe, based on outdated data. Think of your psyche like a family system. Inside you there are many parts, some adult, some childlike, some wounded, some defensive. This is the basis of internal family systems IFS therapy. According to IFS, the saboteur isn't a monster, it's a protector. It learned maybe long ago that success brought pressure, that vulnerability led to betrayal, that being seen meant being judged. So it stepped in. It created avoidance, perfectionism, emotional walls, anything to shield you from what it believes is a threat. It's like a scared inner child holding the steering wheel, swerving you away from imagined danger. So when you procrastinate, isolate, overthink or quit, it's not weakness. It's a part of you yelling, "Please don't get hurt again." But here's the problem. That part is stuck in the past. It doesn't realize you're safer now, stronger now, that you can handle risk, intimacy, and growth. You don't need to kill the saboteur. You need to listen to it, understand its fear, and gently take the wheel back. Because when protection becomes obstruction, it's time to update the system, compassionately. Your shadow isn't shaped in isolation. It's also molded by the culture you live in. From early on, society teaches us which traits are acceptable and which must be hidden. Sensitivity is called weakness. Stillness is called laziness. Ambition, in the wrong body, becomes arrogance. These collective values create cultural shadows, entire aspects of human nature we're taught to reject. Capitalist productivity culture, for example, glorifies burnout and shames rest. Hustle is rewarded. Slowing down is judged. So when you try to relax, a voice in your head may scream, "You're falling behind." That's not your truth. That's programming. Likewise, many are raised in cultures where emotional expression is taboo. Vulnerability is punished, not praised. So you learn to suppress emotion until it explodes in sabotage, rage, avoidance, breakdown. Even success itself can be taboo. "Who do you think you are?" becomes a silent mantra that keeps you small. When entire societies reject parts of the human experience, we internalize that rejection. It becomes self-repression and then self-sabotage. To heal the shadow, we don't just look inward. We have to ask, which parts of me were I taught to hide? Not by myself, but by the world around me. So how do you confront the part of you that keeps getting in your way? Not by fighting it, not by ignoring it, but by getting curious. The shadow isn't a villain to be defeated. It's a wounded part of you that needs to be seen, heard, and understood. This is where shadow work begins. It's the practice of making the unconscious conscious, of turning toward the parts of you that feel unacceptable, with honesty and compassion. Start simple. Notice your patterns. What behaviors repeat when you're about to succeed, connect, or grow? Ask the question, what part of me is trying to protect me right now, and from what? Journal your triggers. When you feel intense emotion or resistance, that's often your shadow speaking. Drop the judgment. Replace "what's wrong with me" with "what's this trying to show me?" The goal isn't to eliminate the saboteur, it's to integrate it, to evolve it from a protector based in fear to an ally grounded in awareness. Because once you understand why that part of you acts out, you can respond with wisdom instead of reaction. Awareness is the beginning of freedom. Once you've brought awareness to your inner saboteur, the next step is transformation, rewiring the patterns it's been running for years. This isn't about willpower. It's about training your nervous system to feel safe with what's unfamiliar. Peace, success, intimacy, visibility. Here are a few core practices that help. Reparenting. Speak to your shadow like you would a scared child. When fear or sabotage arises, pause and ask, what do you need right now? Give yourself the safety, love, or validation that wasn't available in the past. Parts work, IFS. Visualize your inner saboteur as a separate part of you. Dialogue with it. Ask what it's protecting you from. Most often you'll find it's not trying to harm you, it's stuck in an old survival role. Somatic work. Since the shadow lives in the body, not just the mind, use practices like breath work, grounding, or nervous system regulation to safely release stored fear and tension. Positive reinforcement. Create small, repeated experiences of safety and success. Celebrate small wins. Let your body learn that good things don't lead to loss. With consistency, your internal world begins to shift from sabotage to self-trust. When you stop running from your shadow and begin to integrate it, something remarkable happens. You become whole. Integration doesn't mean the saboteur vanishes. It means that part of you is no longer exiled. It's seen, understood, and invited to evolve. You stop reacting from fear and start responding from awareness. You begin to notice the urge to sabotage and pause instead of obey. You realize you're no longer ruled by the past. This is the reward: peace without numbness, ambition without anxiety, connection without self-abandonment. When your shadow is integrated, it stops shouting for your attention. It becomes a source of insight, creativity, even strength. You move through life with less resistance because you're no longer at war with yourself. The goal was never to be perfect. The goal was to be whole. And wholeness begins the moment you stop rejecting who you are and start listening. Now you know the part of you that sabotages everything isn't your enemy. It's the wounded protector that never stopped trying to keep you safe. But safety isn't the same as fulfillment. So here's your invitation. Start paying attention. Next time you catch yourself procrastinating, picking a fight, or shrinking from success, pause. Ask, what part of me is afraid right now, and what does it need? Bring light to what's been living in the dark. If this episode sparked something in you, consider journaling on this prompt. What am I most afraid will happen if I actually get what I want? And if you found this helpful, share it with someone who's stuck in their own cycle. Sometimes we just need someone to say, you're not broken, you're just protecting yourself the only way you know how. Healing starts with awareness. You've already begun.